Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what I'm about to show you is one of the most shameless political cover-ups we have ever witnessed in the United States. And it all unfolded this week because while mainstream media was running wall-to-wall stories about a so-called Epstein email bombshell, while Democrat operatives were flooding social media with their latest smear campaign against President Donald J. Trump, they forgot one tiny detail. One tiny little detail. The internet never forgets. And tonight, we're going to walk through exactly how the Democratic National Committee, yes, the official DNC, got caught red-handed using a completely fabricated, selectively edited, strategically redacted Epstein narrative in order to distract the entire country from a humiliating $15 million lie they thought that they could bury. That's right, guys. So while they were screaming, look at Trump, look at Epstein, look at this email, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that, right? While they were doing all that, what they needed you to do was not look at the lawsuits, not look at the settlements, and definitely not look at the $15 million defamation disaster that landed squarely in their lap. But here's the problem for them. The receipts are out. The screenshots are saved. The records haven't changed. And every attempt that they made to twist the story to hide what actually happened has blown up in their faces in the most spectacular way possible. And it gets even worse because the harder they push this Epstein hoax, the more people started digging. And what they uncovered doesn't just clear President Trump, it paints him as one of the only high-profile figures who actually cooperated with authorities to bring Epstein down. Yeah, let that sink in, guys. So tonight, we're going to unpack the timeline the Democrats hoped you would never see. We're exposing the panic, the deletions, the redactions, the smear, and the one fatal mistake that turned their whole plan into a 5-alarm political meltdown. By the time we're done, you're going to understand exactly why the DNC, the legacy media, and the blue check mouthpieces are in full crisis mode, and why this entire Epstein distraction was never about the emails at all. It was about the $15 million lie they hoped would disappear. They thought they could hide it. They thought the Epstein stunt would shift the narrative. They thought you wouldn't notice. Well, America noticed. And tonight, we're breaking it all open. Roll with me, guys, because this one is unbelievable. Hit the like button and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start with the so-called bombshell that the Democrats swore would take down President Trump. Let's start with that one, okay? So the DNC didn't just stumble into this one. This was a coordinated political rollout. This was complete with talking points, synchronized tweets, and blue check echo chambers ready to amplify anything that even looked damaging, okay? They selectively pulled a handful of Epstein emails, stripped out the context, slapped on some dramatic framing, and then they pitched it as the long-awaited smoking gun, tying Trump to Epstein. They thought they had it. They thought this was their moment, but within minutes, not days, not hours, I'm talking minutes, guys, the entire narrative began collapsing almost instantly. Nothing matched reality, nothing lined up, and what they sold as a nuclear strike turned out to be a wet match. The centerpiece of their fake scandal was a wildly misread email suggesting President Trump spent Thanksgiving 2017 with Jeffrey Epstein. This was their proof. This was the message that they blasted across social media. There was just one devastating problem. Donald J. Trump was the president of the United States at the time, and the presidential schedules are fully documented. They're public and they're archived. So anybody with half a brain and Wi-Fi could have checked that. So on Thanksgiving Day 2017, President Trump was not anywhere near Epstein. He was at a Coast Guard station in Riviera Beach, Florida, serving meals, shaking hands, visiting service members, and doing exactly what a president should be doing. The Democrats didn't just misread the email. They bet their entire attack on something instantly, publicly, provably false. Somebody please share this video and get the truth out here. So here's where everything went from embarrassing to full-blown crisis mode for the Democrats. The moment people realized the Thanksgiving claim was impossible, the backlash exploded. Screenshots flooded X, YouTube, Telegram, every platform you can think of. Independent journalists, veterans, even moderates were calling out the Democrats and the DNC for publishing something that was so obviously false. And instead of standing by their claim, the DNC did what guilty people do. They deleted the entire post and pretended it never happened. But of course, the internet had already preserved it in stone. The deletion became bigger news than the accusation itself because it was clear that they tried to hide it. It was public panic. It was damage control in real time, and it proved one thing. They knew that they were caught and they tried to run. And so now we need to talk about the part that they were hoping you would never connect. Because the same week the DNC launched this sloppy Epstein stunt, Democrats were already taking brutal heat for a massive $15 million defamation payout tied to false claims pushed by their allies in the media. Now, this wasn't new. Trump had already won major settlements against ABC News, CBS News, and YouTube in the last year alone. That pattern terrified them. They were desperate to shift the attention away from the fact that yet another Democrat-aligned smear had triggered a massive legal defeat. So what did they do? They tried to drown out the story with a fake scandal. They thought the Epstein angle would distract the country. Instead, it shined an even brighter spotlight on their lie. Here's where everything clicks into place, guys, because while the Democrats were loudly waving around their Epstein email discovery, conservative and independent news outlets began pointing out something the mainstream media refused to touch. Democrats were using the Epstein angle as a distraction from their own disaster. It wasn't random. It wasn't organic. It was a coordinated pivot away from the $15 million defamation humiliation that they had just suffered. And wouldn't you know, this bombshell Epstein narrative magically exploded across social media on the exact same day Democrats were taking fire for lying about President Trump yet again. They thought they could bury a scandal under a bigger scandal, but instead the country saw the desperation dripping from every tweet, every talking point, and every fake headline. But then the real grenade rolled out under their feet when people noticed the redactions. That's right, guys, the redactions. The Democrats didn't just release emails. They edited them selectively, particularly one email involving a victim whose name mysteriously disappeared behind black bars. And when investigators and journalists traced the timeline, the unredacted version pointed directly to none other than Virginia Giuffre. This is a victim who publicly stated multiple times that Donald Trump never harmed her, never acted inappropriately, and never participated in Epstein's crimes. She even defended him before her death. So ask yourself, why would Democrats hide the name of a victim who clears Trump? Why redact only the one person who defended him? I think the answer is obvious and it's simple, because her existence destroys their entire narrative. The redaction wasn't protection, it was manipulation. You guys see what they just tried to do, right? Drop a yes if you guys are following me on this, okay? And so once those redactions were exposed, the Democrats unleashed their next disaster. Their spokespersons had no idea how to explain it. The moment reporters asked why a now deceased victim's name was hidden, the spokesperson froze. First they said, well, they didn't know. Then they said they couldn't confirm. Then they claimed they weren't responsible, even though the emails had Democratic committee metadata all over them. The stuttering, the contradictions, the panic, it was brutal. Viewers could see it instantly. They weren't clarifying anything. They were scrambling. And that fumbling performance didn't just make them look uninformed, it made them look guilty. It looked like a cover-up that they hadn't rehearsed. And the American people can smell the fear. This wasn't transparency. It was damage control live camera. Now, ladies and gentlemen, something massive is happening right now, and almost nobody in mainstream media is even talking about it. Gold is exploding past every single Wall Street forecast. In fact, silver is following very close behind. And while the media tries to distract America with endless noise about polls and scandals, the truth is, guys, this gold breakout could redefine the financial power structure across the world. Tariffs, wars, de-dollarization. China and Russia are building systems to trade without the US dollar, while our nation, under President Donald J. Trump's leadership, is fighting to restore American strength, American production, and American value. And right dead smack in the middle of this chaos is a revolution. The revolution is unfolding in the gold market. And so now this video is sponsored on behalf of StreamX, ticker symbol STEX, on the NASDAQ. And I genuinely believe that this company represents what could be a Netflix versus Blockbuster moment in the world of gold and commodities. And for decades, gold ETFs, they were the Blockbuster video of the metals market. Clunky, fee heavy, limited by geography. But StreamX is about to flip that model on its head, offering fully backed, vaulted, audited, and yield-bearing gold ownership that is accessible to anyone, anywhere. Now think about that for a second, guys. You've got billionaire mining tycoon Frank Guista, the man who built multi-million-dollar gold empires, just took a massive position in StreamX right alongside legendary miner Sean Roosen. Now together, they're betting that tokenized yield-generating gold is the future of wealth storage. Backed by up to $1.1 billion in funding led by Cantor Fitzgerald, StreamX is preparing to launch its first yield-bearing gold product, partnered with Monterey Metals, one of the leaders in gold leasing. So this means for the first time in history, you could actually get paid to own gold. Their chief investment officer, Mitchell Williams, formerly managed billions of dollars for Oppenheimer and Wafra. Their platform, developed by the same cybersecurity experts who built systems for JP Morgan and Capital One, will run on the same Solana and Coinbase base blockchains. And so when you combine that technology with this kind of leadership plus Trump's pro-American, pro-commodity economic vision, we could be looking at a generational shift in how wealth is preserved and grown. So again, the company is StreamX, trading under STX on the NASDAQ. I'm not an investment advisor, and this video should not be considered investment advice. Always conduct your own due diligence before making any financial decisions. But I will say this, when gold meets innovation and America's economy roars back under President Trump, history tends to repeat itself, and fortunes are made by those who saw the shift coming first. Now let's talk about the hypocrisy that literally pushed this whole situation into absurdity. The Democrats proudly waved around Epstein's old insults against Trump, calling him dangerous and claiming he had not one decent cell in his body. They treated Epstein's opinion like gospel, as if the moral judgment of a convicted predator somehow elevated their argument. Now think about that for a second, right? They spent years accusing Republicans of lacking empathy for victims, yet in the same breath, they held up Jeffrey Epstein, a man synonymous with exploitation, as a credible political character witness. And the irony, Epstein despised Trump precisely because Trump refused to play along with his world. Elevating Epstein only highlighted how twisted the Democrats' logic had become. They weaponized the words of a monster to smear the man who opposed him. But here's the part the Democrats never wanted the public to remember. Long before Epstein was arrested, President Donald J. Trump was one of the only high-profile individuals who actually helped law enforcement. You know, that whole situation reminds me of something I hear from a lot of seniors watching this channel. There's a moment when people realize that they've been overpaying or missing benefits, and it's usually followed by two words: never again. That's why I partner with Chapter, guys, and they show you what your Medicare plan is really doing and what it should be doing. Now, one viewer told me, Chapter opened my eyes. I can't believe I waited this long. So let me ask you, when is your moment of truth coming? Now, most people already had theirs after calling 909-563-8279, the phone number at the bottom of your screen right there, or visiting askchapter.org/Ron. Speaking of real people getting real help, listen to this comment from one of our amazing viewers. Starlight Wow said, Ron, I want to personally thank you. I called Chapter today and got a great policy for 2026. I get to keep my doctor, which was so important to me. I mentioned your name when I called. I thank you for something to help my mind relax, knowing I have great coverage. Guys, this is why I partner with brands that deliver results. Think about that. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, according to interviews and documented testimony, Epstein himself believed that in 2004, it was Trump who tipped off Palm Beach authorities about the illegal activities that were happening in Epstein's mansion. Trump called the police on Epstein. Come on, guys. So 1 year later, in 2005, President Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago altogether for life after a complaint involving Epstein and a staff member's daughter. And in 2009, when attorney Bradley Edwards, representing more than 70 Epstein victims, reached out for information, Trump didn't lawyer up or dodge. He picked up the phone and cooperated fully. And he was described as extremely helpful. Come on, guys. You can't even make this stuff up. This is not the behavior of an accomplice. That's the behavior of a whistleblower. So when you stack all the evidence side by side, the Democrats' entire narrative falls apart like a wet napkin. Every component of their attack, every snippet, every headline, every bombshell email collapsed the moment basic fact-checking began. The timeline was false. The Thanksgiving claim was false. The implications were false. The redactions were misleading. The talking points, they contradicted one another. Their spokespersons contradicted themselves. This was a 5-alarm meltdown fueled by sloppy research and political desperation. And because everything started crumbling so quickly, people didn't just reject the story. They started asking why Democrats were willing to twist Epstein's legacy into a weapon in the first place. That's when the public realized this wasn't about truth, it was about distraction. And the distraction failed. And once the facts began shredding the Democrats' narrative, their media allies did exactly what we all expected. They panicked. Overnight, the talking point shifted. First, it was the emails are damning. Then it became context matters. Then it morphed into Republicans are misrepresenting the leak. They tried everything, attacking the messengers, downplaying the redactions, even claiming the DNC post deletion was routine. But by then, the internet had already turned on them. The independent journalists, veterans, commentators, like everyone tore the story apart. Social media roasted Democrats for using Epstein's words as if he were some moral compass. Meme pages blew up, hashtags trended. The credibility crisis wasn't contained to the DNC. It spread to every outlet that tried to prop up the failed smear. And the more they spun, the worse it got. And remember, all of this unfolds under a political landscape Democrats didn't anticipate. Donald J. Trump is president of the United States right now, November 2025. Their messaging machine, once a well-oiled force during the Biden era, it's falling apart under the weight of its own contradictions. Every scandal that they tried to manufacture blows back in their faces. Every attack gets fact fact-checked in real time. Every narrative fractures the moment it meets reality. They have lost control of public perception, and this Epstein hoax was supposed to be their big swing to get it back. But instead, it highlighted the weakness of their entire strategy. So rather than damaging Trump, it confirmed that the Democrats are running out of material, recycling debunked narratives because nothing else sticks. This wasn't strength. This was desperation. Now, here's a twist that absolutely destroyed the Democrats' entire operation. The very emails and testimony that they selectively showcased ended up proving the exact opposite of what they wanted. So instead of painting Trump as some Epstein insider, the evidence showed the two men were adversaries, not allies. Epstein openly disliked Trump. Trump banned him from Mar-a-Lago. Trump helped the investigators investigate him. Trump cooperated with attorneys representing the victims of Epstein. Even Epstein's own comments revealed resentment toward Trump for not participating in or tolerating his behavior. So the Democrats' bombshell didn't just flop. It confirmed Trump was one of the only major figures who stood up against this Epstein character long before the public understood who Epstein really even was. They uncovered the truth, and it backfired spectacularly. And the irony? The greatest irony of all? By trying to bury the $15 million defamation disaster, the Democrats dragged the entire mess back into the spotlight. Because the moment their Epstein narrative collapsed, the public began asking, wait, why were they pushing this story so aggressively in the first place? Now that question right there led right back to the payouts. Big, embarrassing public payouts linked to false attacks on President Trump. So instead of distracting him from the scandal, the DNC actually enlarged it. What a huge blunder on their part. What they hoped would overshadow their legal humiliation ended up reminding America that Democrats and their media partners have a documented pattern of lying about Trump and paying steeply for it. They tried to hide the story, they resurrected it by accident, and now everybody sees it. And so now we reach the part that Democrats fear the most, the consequences. Because after everything, the misread emails, the false timeline, the deceptive redactions, the panicked deletions, the failed smear, the misinformation spread through official channels, the DNC may have opened themselves up to yet another defamation problem. President Trump has already secured major victories against ABC, CBS, and YouTube, all tied to false statements. Courts have made it clear. If you publish something knowingly false, recklessly false, or politically manipulated to damage someone's reputation, you will pay for it. And the DNC checked every one of those boxes in this meltdown. This wasn't a mistake. This was a coordinated lie. And now they're cornered, exposed, and facing the fallout that they tried desperately to avoid.